There's this feeling you get sometimes when you hit an old website. Before the algorithm, before the feed, before everything was designed to keep you scrolling. It feels slower, a little lost, but also kind of free. Japan never let go of that feeling, and I've been thinking about why. Japan is the country that gave the world the bullet train, the self-cleaning toilet, the robot hotel where a velociraptor checks you in. So when you open a Japanese government website for the first time, and I want you to actually do this at some point, there's this moment, this cognitive dissonance. Your brain tries to reconcile what it knows about Japan with what it's looking at. Because what you're looking at is 2003. Blue hyperlinks, tiny fonts, columns of text stacked against advertisements, no white space or breathing room. It looks like someone found a GeoCities page and made it load slower. But the thing is, it was updated last week. This isn't a story about a country falling behind. This is a story about a country that ran so far ahead in building its own digital world, its own phone culture, its own internet, that by the time the rest of the world caught up, it had already become something else entirely. And Japan stayed. So the date is February 22nd, 1999. NTT Docomo, Japan's largest telecom, launches a service called iMode. And at the time, barely anyone outside Japan notices. But what Docomo had just done was invent the mobile internet. Not a prototype, a fully operational, commercially available mobile internet. With email, banking, weather, games, music, all on a flip phone. All in 1999. Keep in mind, this is 8 years before Steve Jobs walked onto his stage in San Francisco and told the world he was reinventing the phone. Within 3 years, iMode had over 50 million subscribers. Japan wasn't experimenting with mobile internet, Japan was mobile internet. The rest of the world was still figuring out dial-up, and the phones themselves were something else entirely. They had cameras before cameras were a thing. The first mass-market camera phone was the JSH04, released by Sharp in November 2000. Japan invented the camera phone. Japan invented the mobile wallet, Osaifu Keitai, literally wallet phone, launched in 2004, letting people pay for train rides and convenience store snacks with a tap. Japan invented QR codes. Japan invented the emoji. That original set of 176 emoji was designed by a man named Shigetaka Kurita for iMode, because the tiny screens and 250 character limits made visual shorthand essential. The smiley face you just sent someone? That came from a Japanese flip phone. And there's a name for what Japan had built. Researchers and tech journalists eventually started calling it Keitai culture, mobile phone culture. A civilization that lived inside a device the rest of the world hadn't figured out how to use yet. Japan was the future. So, what happened? There's a concept in evolutionary biology called the Galapagos effect. When a species evolves in complete isolation, on an island away from the mainland, it develops in ways that are perfectly suited to its environment. Everything works, everything fits, the ecosystem is closed and within it, thriving. And then, the mainland arrives. The Japanese themselves started calling their phones Garake, a portmanteau of Galapagos and Keitai, Galapagos phone. Because what they built was a miracle of engineering that existed for one market, in one language, inside one closed system. iMode used proprietary web standards. The payment systems were carrier-specific. The content was designed for Japanese screens and Japanese users. It worked perfectly, as long as you stayed inside Japan. In 2007, Apple launched the iPhone with an open app ecosystem, a globally standardized interface. a platform that worked identically in Tokyo, New York, and Lagos. Within 3 years, the Garake began its long decline. The thing that made Japan's mobile internet extraordinary, its precision, its insularity, its perfection in one culture, was the same thing that made it impossible to export. Japan hadn't fallen behind. Japan had built a spaceship for a journey nobody else was taking. Here's where most people make the mistake. They look at a Japanese website, the hyperlinks stacked 6 deep, the banner ads bleeding into text, and the drop-down menus that contain other drop-down menus, and they think, this is design that forgot to evolve. But that's a Western lens on a non-Western psychology. In Japan, there's a cultural concept called anen, an emphasis on reassurance, on eliminating unwanted surprise. When you land on a website in Japan, the information isn't cluttered, it's complete. Every possible question you might have is pre-answered. Every contingency is addressed. The page is telling you, we thought of everything, so you don't have to wonder. Anthropologists call Japan a high-context culture. Communication in high-context cultures is layered, nuanced, implicit. Nothing is left to assumption. The American internet, minimalist, white space, one CTA button and a hero image, that design philosophy communicates, we trust you to figure out the rest. Japan's design communicates, we respect you too much to leave anything out. There's also a technical reason this happened that almost no one talks about. English fonts require about 230 individual glyphs. Japanese, which draws from hiragana, katakana, and thousands of kanji characters, requires tens of thousands. Designing a single Japanese typeface takes years and costs enormous resources. So, Japanese web developers, faced with no clean typographic hierarchy to work with, had to build visual structure another way. Through color, through density, through embedding text directly into images. So it's not laziness, it's constraint-driven design under conditions the Western internet never had to face. And the quietly insane part is that it works. The conversion rates on Japanese e-commerce sites are extremely high. The users aren't confused. They're navigating exactly the way they were raised to navigate. The design was never broken. It just wasn't built for you. While Japan was building the future of mobile internet above ground, something else was growing underground. 1999, same year as iMode. A 22-year-old college student named Hiroyuki Nishimura is studying in Arkansas. He builds a website from his dorm room and launches it in Japan. He calls it 2channel. No usernames, no profiles, no identity at all. You post, your words exist. You are Nanashi, nameless. 2channel wasn't anonymous in the way we think about anonymity in the West, as a tool for evading accountability. In Japan, anonymity had a different philosophical weight. Japan is a society of constructed public personas. There's a version of yourself you show at work, a version for your family, a version for strangers on the train. The pressure to perform a specific self in a specific context with a specific hierarchy is constant and exhausting. 2channel was the first place where none of that applied. Nishimura explained his reasoning in an interview. When posts have usernames attached, conversation becomes a status game. Older users accumulate authority. You disagree with them at social cost. But under true anonymity, only the argument matters. Only the idea survives. All information is treated equally, he said. Only an accurate argument will work. By 2007, 2channel was described as Japan's most popular online community, with comparable cultural influence to television, radio, and print media combined. 2.5 million posts per day, 10 million daily visitors. And then, a teenager in Arkansas named Christopher Poole found it. He didn't read Japanese. He didn't fully understand the cultural architecture of why 2channel worked. But he took the structural idea, anonymous image board, no registration, pure velocity of thought, and in 2003, he built 4chan. The rest of that story, you know. But here's what gets lost. The thing that made 2channel profound in Japan was specifically Japanese. The anonymity wasn't about chaos, it was about release. About having one space on Earth where your social position meant nothing. In a society where your name determines your place in every room you walk into, namelessness wasn't nihilism, rather it was necessary. When that architecture was transplanted to the West without that cultural context, the release became something else. Without the social hierarchy to rebel against, without the specific Japanese pressure that made anonymity feel like freedom, it became a different thing entirely. Japan built the anonymous internet as a pressure valve. The West turned it into a weapon. Here is one of the most specific facts I have ever put on video. In 2021, the Japanese government, acknowledging that the country had a digital problem, formed a new digital agency with one clear mandate: modernize. Get Japan off legacy systems and get Japan online. One of their first targets was the fax machine. When the digital agency announced a plan to eliminate fax machines from official government communication, they received 400 formal objections from different ministries. 400 formal objections to getting rid of the fax machine. That same year, the Japanese government disclosed that over 1,900 intergovernmental procedures still depended on physical media. Things like floppy disks, CDs, in some cases mini disks, a format that peaked in 1998. Some Japanese cities were still using floppy disks for bank transfers as recently as 2021. And a 2022 report found that over 90% of local governments were still using fax machines for daily communication. Now, this sounds just absurd from the outside, but understanding why it happened is the actual story. Japan's fax machine culture started in the 1980s, during the economic boom. Faxes became symbols of status and reliability. Two qualities that resonate at the cellular level of Japanese corporate identity. But more than that, the complexity of written Japanese made handwritten documents preferable to early digital text, which couldn't render kanji correctly. The fax machine wasn't adopted despite Japan's sophistication. It was adopted because of it. And then, it became law. Literally. Certain government departments legally required fax as the official method for submitting documents. Not preference, legislation. Once the fax machine was embedded in law, changing it required changing the law, obviously, which required consensus, which required committees, which required, in a seniority-based, consensus-driven organizational culture, the agreement of the people who had built their careers around the existing system. You see where this is going. The people who built their careers around the existing system are, structurally, the last people who will vote to change it. Japan's government didn't have a unified digital strategy. Different ministries built their own patchwork IT systems with no common infrastructure. So by the time anyone looked at the full picture, Japan's digital backbone was a quilt of incompatible legacy systems, each one deeply embedded in the specific ministry that built it, each one protected by the people whose expertise was running it. A 2018 Ministry of Economy report warned Japan was facing a digital cliff. projecting losses of up to $86 billion per year after 2025 if businesses fail to update their digital infrastructure. They named the cliff, they measured the cliff, and then they kept walking toward it. Then came 2020, a global pandemic, real-time data, life or death decisions being made based on the speed at which information could travel from local health offices to national databases. And a foreign journalist watching footage of Japanese government officials processing COVID case data said something that is going to stay with me for a long time. They watched officials receiving paper fax transmissions, sorting them by hand, and faxing them to the next office in the chain. I asked a friend overseas about it, one Japanese businessman wrote. He laughed. A fax machine? I haven't seen one in 20 years. That 20-year gap was the reason my business couldn't reopen. The pandemic didn't create Japan's digital problem, but it made it impossible to look away from. A national health crisis, and the country's data infrastructure was paper and telephone lines. The image of a country sorting COVID data by hand while the rest of the world built contact tracing apps. That image didn't just embarrass Japan internationally, it forced a conversation that decades of structural inertia had successfully avoided. Japan's cybersecurity minister, Yoshida Sakurada, admitted in parliament in 2018 that he had never used a computer. Never. In 2018. The cybersecurity minister. When asked about USB drives, he expressed confusion about the concept. This is the same country that built the Shinkansen, that put mobile banking on a flip phone in 1999, that invented the emoji. The gap isn't about intelligence or capability, it's about who gets to decide what changes and how long they've been in the room. I want to reframe something. We spent a lot of time talking about what Japan got stuck with, but there's a version of this story where Japan isn't the cautionary tale. The modern Western internet is optimized. Every interaction has been A/B tested. Every color, every button placement, every scroll mechanic has been engineered to produce a specific behavior in your nervous system. We live inside interfaces that were scientifically designed to make you stay longer than you intended. Japan's internet wasn't optimized for that. It was optimized for information. For the person who came to a page with a specific question and needed a specific answer and trusted the page that would contain it. No algorithm deciding what you see first, no feed learning what keeps you engaged, no invisible hand nudging you toward the content that produces the most ad revenue. Just a page. Dense. Overwhelming. Human. There's a reason people talk about the old internet with something close to grief. Before everything was a platform. Before everyone was a brand. When you stumbled into a website that was clearly made by one person for no audience in particular because they really cared about something specific and weird. Japan, to a significant degree, still has that. 2Channel and its successor 5Channel still operates, still anonymous, still text forward, no engagement metrics, no verified accounts, no dopamine engineering, just words. And the websites that look like 2003, they were often built in 2003 by a single person, a small company, a local government department that one guy maintains. They've been updated, obviously, the content changes, the products change, but the structure stays because the person who built it is still the person maintaining it, and changing the structure isn't the job. The job is the content. There's something quietly human about that. When the technology journalist Julian DeBell wrote about the Japanese internet culture, he made a point that stuck with me. In Japan, he said, cultural distinctions between public and private life matter deeply. Having two identities isn't so much a failure of integrity as a working definition of it. That's what 2Channel gave people. A private self, free of consequence, free of hierarchy, free of the performance that daily life required. The Western internet gave you a profile, Japan gave you a mask. And then we spent 20 years arguing about which one was healthier, while building platforms that gave you neither. Platforms that watched everything you did, logged every preference, and sold the shape of your attention to the highest bidder, all while asking you to put your real name on it. Maybe Japan wasn't the one who got trapped. On March 31st of this year, NTT Docomo shut down its 3G network, and with it, iMode, the world's first mobile internet, went permanently offline. After 27 years, 500,000 people were still using it. Think about that for a second. 500,000 people in 2026 still on a mobile internet service from 1999. Still using the thing that the rest of the world copied, renamed, and forgot to credit. Japan built the mobile internet. They invented camera phones, mobile payments, mobile gaming, emoji. They gave the world the anonymous image board, which became 4chan, which became the template for the entire modern culture of internet anonymity, for better and for worse. They built a web design philosophy rooted not in minimalism but in trust, the belief that users deserved complete information rather than a curated illusion of simplicity. And they got left behind by the thing they built. Or maybe, and this is the thought I keep coming back to, they made a different choice. Not about technology, about what technology was for. The modern internet wants your attention. It wants to know what makes you stay, what makes you click, what makes you come back. It is extraordinarily good at that. The modern internet is a machine that has been tuned over 20 years to extract something from you. Japan's internet, with all its density, its anonymity, its refusal to smooth itself into palatability for Western eyes, was built for a different purpose. To answer a question. To let someone speak without consequence. To sell a product to someone who had already decided to buy it. It wasn't built for you, but it was built for someone. And in a world where the dominant design philosophy is to make a product that keeps every possible person glued to a screen as long as possible, maybe the internet that was built for someone specific deserves a second look. If you want the hidden stories of culture nobody talks about, you're in the right place. Like and subscribe.